Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I am your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 138 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think can be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about another way in which you can protect your finances over the long term. Now, we have talked about two pretty obvious ones the first 2 days of this week, and that was having the correct insurances, the correct insurance coverages in place, and then also having the correct estate planning documents in place as well to protect your finances over the long term. But today we are going to flip the script just a little bit. And I am going to say one way that you can protect your finances over the long term is to take good risks. Now, I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive to protecting your finances, but I'm going to explain why taking good risks can protect your long-term financial future and why it is necessary to do so if you want to get anywhere financially worth getting. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to get back to anything you leave there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, then make sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you walk through your financial life, create a plan that is specific to your financial life, and help you to walk through it and keep you accountable to it over the long term, then I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. Now, we all think of taking risk as something that is negative. We all think of taking risk as something that could increase the likelihood of loss. And technically, when you are looking at what is more risky than something else, you are saying what is my higher likelihood of loss relative to some other alternative. And, with specifically investing, you're thinking about the variation of returns over time. And that is what we call risk. And that's typically the standard deviation or variance of the returns of whatever we're investing in. But we rarely think of risk in a way that can help us. We rarely think of risk in a way not just that can help us, because we may think of risk as something we're like, okay, risk-return relationship, we know more risk, more return, right? Then obviously that could help us because we could make higher returns. But we rarely think of risk in a way that can help to protect us, right? Taking risks can protect you financially. And that's really what I want to get into today, is that if you take good risks, right, you take the right types of risks, then they can help to protect you financially. And this is going to differ, and I'm going to juxtapose these good risks with bad risks, right? There are bad risks that you can take, and these things are not going to protect you financially. They will put your financial life in jeopardy. And so we don't need to take these bad risks. We don't need to do these types of things. And I'm going to talk about what some of those things are. And so let's kick off with that today. One bad financial risk that you could take is the risk of keeping up with the Joneses, right? It is the risk of buying the things that everybody else is buying because you think that it's cool and you think that it is what is best for you over the long term. So keeping up with the Joneses, which we've talked about time and time again, which is just strictly hey, they have it, I want it. It's a jealousy, envy game, and we are getting the things that our neighbors get when we know we are not in the same financial position that somebody else is. So we don't know what their financial life looks like, but we just want to emulate the things that they have because they look cool. And so that is a risk we can take financially. That is a very bad risk, right? If we are basing our financial future on keeping up with those around us, then that's a bad risk to take. Along the same lines, fear of missing out can lead us to a bad financial risk as well. It can lead us to trying to not miss out, right? This FOMO, fear of missing out. If we see things that other people are doing or other people are buying, or all your friends have bought houses or all your friends have new cars or all these types of things, in similar ways to the keeping up with the Joneses, fear of missing out is more like, I'm afraid that if I don't do that, I won't be in as good a position, or they will look at me differently, or things like that. Or when it comes to investing, fear of missing out is simply I'm fearing that I won't get the returns that my counterparts get. Therefore, I'm going to try to jump into this hot stock, this hot new thing, and try to make any returns that I can there, even though it may not be what's best for me. Which leads to a very specific financial risk that you can take, and that is putting your money into things you don't understand, investing or speculating into things that you do not understand, because this can lead you to a lot of losses. It can lead you to a lot of downside. Now, that's not to say that not understanding Apple and buying the stock 5 years ago wouldn't have benefited you tremendously, but you could have just as easily bought a stock that was really hot that has since crashed. And so that it's something that could be, a real detriment to your long-term financial future if you are buying investments that you do not understand or speculating in things that you do not understand, like many people do with things like Bitcoin, like people did with GameStop, like people did with AMC, like people are currently trying to do with Dogecoin. Like, what the heck is Dogecoin, right? And so we need to keep our mind set on the things that are going to benefit us over the long term. And those are just bad risks to take. It is risky to not understand what you are investing in. Another bad financial risk that we talk about a lot on this show is financing things with debt, right? Using debt as a quote unquote tool, right? Using debt to limit our cost in the short term and maximize our pain in the long term, right? Debt is going to maximize your long-term pain. It is going to be a pinch on your long-term cash flow and your ability to create wealth over the long term. So we do not need to get into the cycle of having a lot of debt and relying on debt for purchasing anything that we would like to purchase, because it is only going to come back to haunt us. And so another financial risk that is a bad risk is taking on consumer debt, credit cards, student loans, car loans, anything of the like, payday loans, all of those types of things can be detriments to our long-term financial success, our long-term financial freedom, and they are risks that we choose to take. We choose to go into debt in order to finance something, and that can lead to a lot of hurt. And so those are just a few bad financial risks. There are a lot more. I don't want to spend my whole show talking about that. I want to talk about good financial risks that you can take that can help to protect your finances over the long term. So the first good financial risk that I think we should talk about, it's very baseline, it's very straightforward, but I think it is a good risk that can help you to build long-term wealth, and that is purchasing a home, buying a house, right? We've talked about how buying a house, taking out a mortgage, is the only type of debt that I think is reasonable, at least for some time. Now, obviously, I want you to pay off that mortgage early, and that's part of the financial action plan. But I am okay with a mortgage for a short period of time. Why? Because it has been shown in the data time and time again that being a homeowner is going to lead to long-term financial success. Being a homeowner, owning your home outright, can help you to get to that point of long-term financial success. And not to mention, homes go up in value, right? So most of the things that we would finance with debt go down in value, right? Cars go down in value, anything with wheels goes down in value, but homes do not. Homes historically go up in value with the goods and services in the economy, maybe even at a higher clip than the other goods and services in the economy. But homes tend to go up in price, especially if they are in good neighborhoods, especially if they are built well and have the adequate bones to go up in value over time. And so owning a home could be something that is a good risk to take out a mortgage to purchase a home. Now, like I said, obviously we want to pay that mortgage off as quickly as possible, but it's just so expensive to buy a home in all cash that I don't expect you to do that. But I do expect you to get to a point where you do own your home outright. You do have your home paid off, and that is just a part of your long-term financial journey. But this is a risk to take, right? And the reason that this is a risk is because you are taking out this debt, right? But you do need to have some down payment, and you do need to get in at a 15-year or lower term on the mortgage, and you need to make this thing go away quickly. But it is okay to have the mortgage in the short term. It is a good risk to take because that house will likely go up in value. You'll be able to use that equity on your next home whenever you purchase another home. And that is just an asset on your balance sheet, right? That is an asset towards your net worth that is going to help you push towards millionaire status. Taking good risks is great as long as it's going to get you toward millionaire status and limit the likelihood of things going badly. Because there are things that have gotten people to be millionaires, billionaires, whatever it may be, that I would not suggest for you because they are so risky. It is not necessarily a good risk to take. But we have seen that home ownership and being a millionaire are synonymous. And so this is a good risk that I think you should take. Another good risk, and I want to kind of sit on this one for a little while, is investing in the stock market over the long term. Now, we know there's risk inherent to the stock market, right? We know there's risk. And sometimes a lot of times actually, people put more risk along with the stock market than it is due, right? They assume that the stock market is something that you can either make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. And that's not the long-term story. Now, that is the short-term story. The short-term story of most assets are that you could make a lot of money or lose a lot of money in the short term. But over the long term, the United States stock market has produced superb returns for investors. And the long-term trajectory, it is no surprise, the long-term trajectory, if you put a trend line, is up and to the right, right? The long-term trajectory is upward. And so that's what we need to know. And that's why I've talked about when you invest, that you don't need to be investing for less than 5 years, because we are looking for long-term returns. We are trying to take good risks over the long term. And a good risk would be to invest our money over the long term in the United States stock market, in things like the S&P 500, in things like the Russell 2000, Russell 3000, those broad market indexes that will provide really, really good returns. Now, how does this protect our finances? Because I said we are talking about ways this week that we can protect our finances. Well, putting your money into something that is going to grow over the long term is going to help you to live the financial life that you've always wanted to live. So it is going to protect your financial dreams. It is going to protect your ability to do the things that you want to do in the future. And on a more just direct note, what does it protect? It protects you against inflation. It protects you against the value of your money going down over time. Because if you just put your money into a bank account, you can save as much as you want to save over time, but that money is going to get eaten away at, the value of it, by inflation. Well, if you invest in the United States stock market, you are going to make a premium over inflation. And so you are going to have the ability to keep up and beat inflation over the long term, thus protecting your money from losing its value over time. And it can help you to protect the dreams that you have financially for yourself over the long term. And it's a similar way with purchasing a home, right? I talked about purchasing a home, taking out a mortgage as a good risk that you could take. Well, this is a good risk, and it can help you to protect your finances, because think about this. Buying a home helps to create some stability in your housing situation, right? Yes, everything is up to you. And so you have to pay for things that break. And, if there's a storm, you have to get the roof fixed and all this type of stuff. But on the other hand, everything is up to you. It is within your control. It is your asset to manage, which is a fantastic thing. So it provides some protection against uncertainty there. But something else that owning a home is going to do for you, and that is going to protect for you, it is going to protect your ability to reach long-term financial freedom. Because if we can own a home with no debt, then we free up our cash flow, right? We free up cash flow, and we have the ability to save and invest and become millionaires and live our financial dreams even faster. So it has that ability to protect you from uncertainty and protect your long-term dreams in the same way that investing for the future does. And these things are things that you have to be doing. Again, these are all part of the financial action plan. You will find them there. You will not get lost in the financial action plan without looking and seeing, okay, we need to invest and we need to pay off our home. We need to own a home in the first place, right? And so these things will help you to protect your long-term dreams. And that's what I want to do. I want to help you to create financial freedom and help you to keep these long-term financial dreams in your view, in your sight, because if you can keep those things in your sight, then it's far more likely that you will reach them over the long term. But both of these things do require some risk, and so that is very important to keep in mind as well. Now, in a similar way to us taking risks in investing, right, and keeping up with inflation over time, another good risk that we could take is to have some of our money get eaten away at by inflation over time. Now, why is this? Why do I say this? Because Dylan, this does not sound like a good idea. Overall, this is not a good idea. But I am referring to your emergency savings, your emergency fund, right? Your emergency fund needs to be somewhere that obviously is not going to grow much, right? That is going to be there, that is safe, that is protected, that is there if you need it. Well, obviously, if you are putting your money away in a savings account or a checking account or something of the like over a long period of time, the value of it is going to get eaten away at by inflation. But what do we know? We know that that money is going to be there. There is no question whether or not that money is going to be there when we need it. And that's what we need to know when we have an emergency fund. We need to know that the money is going to be there when we need it. And so that's why we put it in a savings account, in a money market account, things of the like. That way we can get our hands on it regardless. Now, what is this going to require of you? This is going to require that as inflation increases, right, as time goes on, you may have to add more money to the account to just keep up with inflation, to just keep up with the cost of 4 to 6 months of expenses for your household. And so you may have to add some money to it because it has been eaten away at by inflation. But that's perfectly okay, because guess what? Lives are going to change. Our lives are going to change over time. Our standard of living is going to change over time. What we need in our emergency fund is going to change over time. And so making those slight changes over time can be useful. And even though we are going to have to deal with these impacts of inflation, we have this protection against tragedy. Remember, I've told you before that emergency funds are insurance for our assets. It's insurance for the things that we own, like in our investment accounts, right? We don't have to liquidate our investments in order to pay for emergencies. We have this emergency fund. This emergency fund is set aside in order to do this for us. And so it is protecting our other assets, but obviously it is being eaten away at by inflation systematically. And obviously that's not something that we love, but if it is a small part of our long-term financial journey and it protected us against things that would have taken away from things that could be compounding and growing over the long term, then I am perfectly okay with it. And I think that an emergency fund is a perfectly okay part of our financial plan that will allow you to protect your finances over the long term, even if you have to take a little hit on inflation. Now, what's another financial risk that you should take? Well, another financial risk, good risk that you should take is losing friends. And I know you didn't like that I just said that, but sometimes when it comes to getting your financial life right, sometimes when it comes to doing the correct things in your financial life, it is going to lead to you losing friends. And you are going to have to take that risk if you want to get your financial life in check, if you want to get your financial life rolling in the correct direction. Now, why is this? Why do I have to lose friends in order to do this? Well, you don't have to, right? But it is a risk that you're going to have to take. Why is this? Because people are not going to agree with a good financial plan, right? People believe in spending their money that they have and going out and having a good time all the time and, living paycheck to paycheck. That's what people believe in. People believe in financing cars. People believe in 30-year mortgages. People believe in not investing for their future because they have time, right? But what am I teaching on this show? Everything that is antithetical to all of the things that I just said. I'm teaching things that are opposite to all of the things that I just laid out there for you. And so if that's what your friends are going to be thinking, if that's what normal people, and we are not trying to be normal people, if that's what normal people are focusing on, then obviously we are going to be focusing on opposite types of things. And if we're focusing on different types of things, what are we going to have in common? What are we going to be able to do together, right? What are we going to be able to, come to a common ground on? The answer is not a whole lot, unless your friends are understanding, unless you are just around a bunch of, really good, nice, gracious people that, understand what you're doing, even if they don't want to do it themselves. But those are rare people to find. So a financial risk, a good risk that you are going to have to take in order to get your financial life in the right direction, because your friends aren't going to help you in your financial life. Yeah, you may be able to borrow some money from a friend or whatever, but your friend's not going to pay off your $60,000 in student loans, and your friend's not going to pay off your $50,000 car, and your friends are not going to pay off that medical debt that you have or that credit card debt that you have. You are going to have to do that yourself. You are going to have to get financially healthy on your own. And it's okay if you working my financial action plan, it ends up being where somebody that you had spent a lot of time around and done a lot of, going out and having fun with and all of these types of things ends up being like, hey man, I just can't, if you're not going to come out, then I don't know what we can do and all this type of stuff. It's not a matter of things getting nasty. It's not a matter of getting mean with people around you or things like that, but it's a matter of saying no and taking a stand and saying, I can't do that. I can't. And people might take that personally, and that's where you could lose friends, right? I'm not saying you should go out of your way to lose friends. I want you to have all the friends that you can. I want you to have all the support you can in building the financial life that you want to live, and just being able to live the life that you want to live and enjoying your life. But if the friends that you have are only friends because you can go out and drink together, or if they're just friends because they like to go out to eat every night with you, or if they're just friends for X, Y, or Z reason that's going to cause you to go deeper into debt or spend more money than you should or break your budget or whatever it may be, and they don't understand why you're not willing to do the things with them that you've always done with them, then it may have to come to you not hanging out with those people anymore. And guess what? That is okay, because there are people that can come into your life that can be in the same place that you are, and that you can meet on the same grounds with those people and still work towards your long-term financial goals. And so I'm not saying I want you to lose friends. I'm just saying that a good risk that you can take that can help you to protect your financial future is to be willing to let some friends go if they are getting in the way of what is going to be best for you long-term. Now, what is one more good risk that you can take financially that will help to protect your finances over the long term? Well, that one more good risk is to give. And it is risky to give. Now, why is it risky to give? Because giving in any type of proportion is taking away cash flow from other places of your financial life. We've talked about this, right? We've talked about how when you give, yes, obviously, if you're giving 10% of your income, then you're only left with 90% of your income to do all of the other things that you either need or want to do with your money. And so giving is going to take away from some of your cash flow. Now, this is a risk in that way because it's a risk on, hey, will I still be able to pay for all the things that I need to pay for with less cash flow? But at the same time, it is a good risk. And why is it a good risk? Because it is a part of financial balance. This is a part of us being the best that we can be with our money over the long term. Giving is a natural part of what we were created to be. We were created to be generous individuals. We were created to help one another. We were created to not just have money that is ours, but to manage money for our Creator, to manage money for God. And if we are in that place to manage money for God, then our giving is something that we are called to do. But it is a risk, right? It is a risk to our worldly life. It is a risk to what we are willing and able to do, right, with the money that we have left over. But how does that help you to protect your finances, right? It is a good risk, but how can it protect your finances? It protects your finances because if you can live on less to be able to give, guess what? You can live on less to be able to pay off debt. You can live on less to be able to save and invest for the future. You can live on less and be able to live the life that you have always wanted to live in retirement, even if maybe you're a little short with your retirement income, but you can learn to live on less, right? And that is a big deal with our giving, right? And it's why it's a part of that, stool or that triangle, right? The three-legged stool or the triangle, the giving, saving, spending triangle of financial balance. That is why it is so important because we can't do one all by itself, or we will fall over on that stool, or things will be out of financial balance. If we have giving, right, it is a good risk to take because it helps to balance us out and protect us from those other two areas of our financial life that can become so heavy to where we can become misers if we're just saving all the time, or we can become just people who spend money like crazy if we're just spending money on ourselves. And so being able to give, choosing to give over the long term is going to be a risk that you take. It's a risk to your cash flow, but it is going to protect you from doing things in your financial life that will make it unhealthy and that will make it unbalanced. And it will put you in the best position long term in order to win with your money. So look, I am not just a habitual risk taker. I'm not somebody who likes to take a lot of crazy risks. And I especially don't like to take a lot of bad risks. And that's why we talked about a few of those bad risks at the outset of this episode. But we need to be taking some good risks. We need to be doing things in our lives that are going to be a little more difficult, right? That are going to take a little more of our mental capacity, that are going to be kind of hard, right? And that may cause us to lose some things in our life. But these are good risks that will allow us to get to the type of financial success that we want to have, and that will allow us to live the most fulfilled financial lives that we can live, living in balance and living with this view of, hey, being financially successful is not everything. It is not all that there is, but there are things that we have to do. There are sacrifices that we have to make to get to where we want to get in our life, just any part of your life, but specifically in your financial life as well. So I hope you can take something from this. I hope that you can see that there are risks that are just crazy and that you probably should never go about taking, but there are also risks that if you take them and you do the things correctly, that you can get into a place financially that maybe you never thought you could get. And it's why I preach these things all of the time through the financial action plan, through all of the episodes of this show, because I think they are so vital to your long-term success. And that's why I will keep preaching them for many, many, many episodes to come. So thanks for watching this video. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below if you haven't done so already, and I'll be sure to respond to anything that you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then make sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms, and I'd be very grateful for that. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to walk through your financial life, to create a plan that is specific to you and your family, and to help you to stay accountable to that plan over the long term, I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So tune in tomorrow when I talk about another way to protect your finances, and it has everything to do with financial advisors. So you're going to want to hear what I have to say about that. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.